No, it's murderous, but that's okay. I can live with it.
Well, so next I'd like this to get up. What I'm here to do is to describe the two things that happened within 1 week this summer. In the very end of June, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which is called GASB, issued radical new rules about how governments are going to have to report the finances of their pensions. And I actually think, my own view is that will have a bigger impact, but they're both pretty big. Then 1 week later, and this is what GASB releases. These are the two new standards that are going to be the rules that governments and their pension funds have to use. And then 1 week later, Moody's released this, which was a request for comment from the industry about proposed adjustments that they're going to make to state and local government reported pension data in their credit rating analysis. And I'm going to describe why those things are necessary and what their general impact, what those changes are, and what it's going to look like for your county in general. I've done a lot of financial modeling in my time, and I took these standards and created models, formulas trying to implement, if you did it this way, what would happen. And then I got data for 6 counties in the Bay Area North Coast: Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, Mendocino, San Mateo, and Sonoma. Those are the 6 counties in our region that don't participate in CalPERS, but instead have their own independent county pension funds. And that's my focus, is those independent county pension funds. And I got their financial statements, I got their actuarial evaluations for their pension funds, and shoved the data through these models. And that's what I'm going to show you. So what I say is, if you don't like these numbers, your argument really isn't with me, it's with GASB or Moody's. My part was, did I get the right data and did I make the model right? But if I had the right data, which I think I did, and I think I modeled it correctly, then these are the numbers that GASB's and Moody's rules would have produced for these 6 counties' 2011 financial statements. Never showed up. Okay. Technical moment here. There we go. Magic. Voila. So I was going to start this presentation by playing a video of Bill Gates at the Aspen Ideas Festival a couple of years ago. Take too long. But I've got this on my website. He was being asked about education, which is a big deal for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the conversation wandered into education budgets. And this fellow, the CEO of Aspen, Isaacson, asked him, do we have a problem with our education budgets in the United States because of this rapidly building pension debt? And, Bill Gates knows a thing or two about money. And his response was, absolutely, it's mind-blowing. What he basically says is the problem is that the government person who makes all of these decisions to grant retroactive benefits or to allow other things to be the base for a pension or to provide cost of living allowances, no number ever shows up. They never feel any pain. It isn't reflected in the budget. It's not reported as an expense. So it's out of sight, out of mind. And the term he used, and from a financial point of view, it makes a lot of sense, only accounting fraud, and that's the word used, allows governments in the United States to pretend their budgets are balanced. And there is a fatal flaw in today's standards about how pension finances are reported to the people and to officials. And I'd like to describe that to you because I think people aren't aware of the extent these changes are going to make just 2 years from now. And when they come, I believe it's going to be a shock, and there's going to be a lot of discussion. And I'd like to show you what the core problem is that had to be addressed and how they're going to do it. The Government Accounting Standards Board sets the rules for local and state governments in the country as to how they have to produce their financial statements. Moody's is a big credit rating agency. Stop that.
It's getting rude.
He's reading your mind.
Yeah. I didn't tell you to do that. Okay, back up. Just a real quick model. We could talk, this stuff is very complicated. Everything I'm going to say has about 28 ifs, ands, and buts attached to it, and I don't have time to do it. So there's going to be things that could easily... It's still doing it? Stop that. Okay.
Must be a government program.
Okay, I might have to sit here and flick it all the time.
You want me to do that for you?
That's not how it worked last night.
Need any help, John? Need any help, John?
No, it's just got to stop doing what it was doing.
I was gonna,
Okay,
I'll buy time.
here's Jane. She's going to work for the county for 30 years, and then she's going to be retired for 20. How does her pension get funded? Because that's what has to be reported in financial statements, and that's what we need to understand the finances of. The first issue is there she is. She's worked half her career. That means she's already earned half her future pension.
Wow.
The true cost to the county of that amount happened here. That's a key point. But as she starts her 16th year, what she's going to do in her 16th year is she's going to earn this little slice of her pensions. So you think about her future pensions. Jane's going to lay down like a layer cake, 30 layers in this future pension. Each layer was earned during one of these years. And so the first number that you have to calculate to figure out how we're going to fund this thing is what's called the normal cost. It's going to be two numbers we have to deal with. The normal cost is the amount of money the actuary figures has to be put into the pension fund this year so that when it grows with investment profits, there'll be enough money to pay this little slice of Jane's pensions right up to the last payment of the last month of her pensions, and then the money's gone. That's the goal. That's the theory. That's what they're trying to do. That's the definition of a normal cost. It's to fund that year's future pensions. It's, of course, a lot more complicated than that, but that's the normal cost. The normal cost gets split between the county and its employees in some way. Then, the second thing that has to be stopped at, boy, this is rude. All right, come on. I'll stay there. The second thing that has to be figured out is, okay, we now know how much money we think we're supposed to be put in here in order to fund that part. The second thing is, well, here's what she's already earned. How much is supposed to be in the pension fund as she begins her 16th year so that as it grows with investments, there'll be enough money to pay this part. That's the amount that they come up with that needs to be here is called the total pension liability. There's a lot of technical terms. That's the total pension liability. Then you compare that to the value of the money, the assets that's in the pension fund, and what's left over is the pension fund's funding position. Sorry, we're going to be going back and forth apparently. What happens if the actuary figures out oops, if everything works the way our assumptions are, we're going to have enough money to get to here, and then we're going to run out of money, and we don't have this, we're not going to have that money. This is the unfunded pension obligation. in almost every case, only the county is obligated to pay it. Employees in almost every case. There's a few places where there's some provisions, but mostly the general rule is the normal cost is split in some way between the employee and the county. But funding this is the county's sole responsibility. And there's two ways that, and so what happens is the county has to eliminate this. And there's two ways to do that. One way is the actuary can figure out a UAAL, unfunded actuarial accrued liability, an unfunded pension amortization, kind of like a 30-year mortgage, but not quite. The point of the actuary is he figures he's got from here to fill this hole. So he can design a payment schedule over these years, sometimes up to 30 years in the future, but usually less. The whole